All right, today with Lift With Me, we're going to be using the lift unit. We're going to be using the Anma first, which is kind of like a lift unit without microcurrent. So we're going to start with the fingers of the unit, and we're just going to kind of go up and down. And one of the questions I get is, can you put oil on? Yes, you can. You can have like a nice oil, but before I do it with microcurrent, I typically don't. I'll just spray with a mist, and I was using the Neogenesis kind of moisturizing mist. And let's go over kind of the décolleté underneath the collarbones, just kind of opening up all of the lymph. And I'm really a big stickler on this because when we do this, we create, I'm seeing if I can spotlight, perfect. We can create this opening. And then whatever lymph we pull from the face when we're doing microcurrent, it's freely kind of just processed through the body. So when you have somebody with a really thick jawline, heavy, tight traps, you know that she's got trapped lymph. And so to go right in and do microcurrent, you can do, you'll see some sort of result, but a lot of times it's really better to kind of do a little bit of lymphatic movements to open up this area. So we're just going to kind of go over that neck. You can see just the normal starts to generate a lot of flushing and circulation, and that flushing and circulation is blood flow, and that's nutrients to the cells. So that's nutrients, that's oxygenation, that is everything. And then just nice, good, deep breaths through the belly, just kind of opening up all of the channels to create lots of nutrition in these areas and circulation. You've probably heard me say it one time or 1,000 times. When a woman goes through menopause, she loses 60% of her microcirculation, and this could account for that kind of gray looking skin that just starts to look sallow and malnourished. So kind of going up on the forehead. I kind of love to do this windshield wiper around the corrugator, kind of opening, and just really working all of this with the fingers, even into the scalp. Now, if I were in the treatment room, I start and I do this. And if I weren't going to follow up with the microcurrent, I would then take the handle, which I call the spine of the unit, and I would go ahead and just gently flush all of the toxins we just loosened up over towards some of the lymphatic ducts. And this is just a great way. It's also a great way to teach your clients how to use the unit. You can kind of use the area between the thumbs, and I call this kind of that back of the neck. And this fits in just really nicely, and it's very comfortable for the client. And then even under the eyes, you can reverse, and it's kind of the back of the thumbs, and it fits right underneath that cheekbone. And these are just little ways to use the unit, still maintaining a light touch and flow using the Anma. So we're just kind of coming around. And if we had more time, I would absolutely say hit that scalp. We do not think about the tension in the scalp and its influence on the fascia and the muscles in the face. It has a huge influence, and just going over it, sometimes people just really complain like, oh, ouch, this really hurts. And what that is this is just loosening up. Think of a dry sponge, right? And how when you first put water on a dry sponge, it kind of repels the water, and the water just beads up on this. So that's what we're actually doing. We're just kind of manipulating and squeezing that sponge under the water. We're just kind of moving this tissue to let the natural flow of the water and reducing the dehydration so much. So just kind of going in that area. And, I was just kind of talking earlier with Regina that, you could almost create a 5-pack of these. They're almost like reading glasses, right? You want one in your car, you want one in your bedroom, you want one in your bathroom, you want one in your office. And when you have the Anmas around, you actually use them and you really do notice a huge difference. So I'm going to be using the Lift, and I'm going to put it on the Lift by Jane Mann microcurrent unit. Program 1 is fascia, and I'm going to take that up. It moves in increments of 5. So I typically start around 30. And because this is microcurrent, you really do need a conductive gel. Today, I'm using the ball bearing attachment. I'm not using a direct attachment, which you can directly attach to the Anma, but sometimes I like to use the balls around little tiny areas, and that's just kind of going in, and you can kind of go in the lip. You can do a lot of different things. So maybe we'll work on that a little bit later today. So it just attaches very simply through magnetics, kind of like a Mac computer. And I'm going to go ahead and take my moisturizing gel or my conductive gel and put this on my face. And I sometimes make a cocktail of products because microcurrent is excellent at penetrating products in, but we're just going to use a simple gel today. I already prepped my skin with the Neogenesis Recovery and Victoria Dion Lift Peptide, two of my favorite kind of go-tos for microcurrent ahead of time. All right, I'm covering my neck, and we're going to start out kind of the same way we just did with the Anma on the program 1. So program 1, what we can expect is a lot of circulation. Okay, so I'm just going to start going up and down. And this is so not like microcurrent, right? But when we use the Lift, we can kind of combine a little bit of new with traditional moves. Now the Lift, each side is like a probe, and you guys keep working on your neck, but imagine a probe, right? And now imagine 2 of them, and I'm missing the other, but you've got 2 probes, and just kind of how you hold the probes on the face, that's exactly the same thing the Lift is. Each side is a probe, except for it's so much easier because you only have to use one hand. So we're just kind of going up and down right now, kind of loosening up the tissue, the connective tissue. And that connective tissue of fascia runs from the very top, the stratum corneum, all the way down through the dermis. Even it turns into different densities. So all we're doing is we're just kind of creating a little bit of resistance, and we're opening up this whole pathway. And that's what I love about when we're on the program 1, is we can just kind of warm up the whole face. One of the questions I get quite a bit is, Jane, I want to know what frequency this is. Everybody wants to know the frequency. Like all of a sudden we're these amazing electrical engineers that understand truly the frequency. This unit works more in a consistency of pattern. So it is a certain frequency, but it's a waveform that's consistently going one program, and then about a minute later, it changes to another pattern, and then another minute, it changes to another pattern. And it's designed to hit the superficial tissues. And what the waveform does is it carries electrons, and electrons are what do the magic. Now, in some cases, an electron might pair with a free electron, and then here microcurrents acting like a direct antioxidant to the skin. It's stopping oxidative stress and and a lot of the damage oxidative stress can kind of do on the skin. In other cases, it's actually being utilized by the cell in the mitochondria and creating ATP in the cell. So in this case, we're actually using the hydrogen, and the hydrogen is kind of binding with an inorganic phosphate and an ADP, and it's creating ATP in the skin. And then other times it can even go deeper, and we're creating little action potentials in the cell, and we're creating tiny, tiny contractions to plump up the muscle and create the need for the body to create more ATP. So microcurrent works on so many different levels. To me, it's just getting the microcurrent on the skin so it can really work its magic and be utilized the way that the body wants to utilize it. So you can see I'm kind of alternating between using all electrodes, or sometimes I'm just using two. And when I just use two, it's stronger because now the force, all of these are deactivated and everything's just working through the two. And this is great for kind of going around, the eye area. This is a round muscle, it kind of squeezes shut, right? So when the eye area, we work on it, it compensates in different areas. So we're working both the upper and the lower at the same time. And the microcurrent is actually going around this whole muscle. So just kind of warming up in this area, again, using program 1 that's dedicated to connective tissue. And you can kind of go underneath, and now I'm just using 4, and I'm just kind of going all in these little pockets that toxins love to hibernate and hide. So we're just kind of going all over that. I can already start to feel my sinuses draining. And now I'm going to go down to the jawline using those same 4. And I'm just moving the unit back and forth. Right now, we're just opening up all of these channels. I'm going to work both sides of the face, kind of showing you. I'm going to take a little moisture mist. I forgot my water. I sometimes dip in. So I'm just kind of going over, creating lots of circulation. And circulation is so important because that's the first step in kind of hydrating this tissue. We're feeding the cell. And one of the leading causes of aging is dehydration, dehydrated cells. And so when we can go in and start to kind of hydrate that cell, think about that cell membrane getting a little bit more buoyant, getting more, movable, and allowing the sodium potassium exchanging. So we're just kind of moving back and forth. And you can come up now, kind of hitting almost just around that edge, right underneath the corrugator. You can feel that tension. It's kind of going up into that forehead area. And we're going to switch over to the other eye. Again, just kind of lifting. And your clients just love this. If you feel like you want, I think another question I get is, how high should I put it? I don't know. I mean, that's between you and your client, because the force or the number, let's say whether it's 40 or 50 or 100, is really contingent upon the impedance of the tissue. And your client will let you know if it's too high. So now we're going to do a movement, and it's really pretty simple. We're going to go up, down, up, and hold. And I like to hold for like 8 seconds. So let's do that again. 1, 2, 3, and hold up. Down, up, up, and hold. At this point, what sensation that hopefully you're feeling is, and again, it's different for everybody, but you really want to feel at this point a little bit of circulation all over the face. The whole face should just have like a little bit of tingle to it. Not a tingle like a sensation of electricity, but just like you just woke it up. So we're going to go down, up, and hold. The neurotrace is been cleared to go over the thyroid. So if you have the neurotrace, this isn't something that you have to worry about. As far as the thyroid goes, any other machines, you need to check with your manufacturer. And we're going to come down, 1, 2, 3, up and hold right underneath that chin. That is a place that I hear so often people say, oh, I'm just getting so much fat. I've got fat under here. All of a sudden I got fat. Well, what that really is displaced tissue. This is a huge muscle in here, and it's also the tongue. And so a lot of times when the fascia gets tightened, it displaces the tissue, and that can be fat, but that can also be worked out. So coming 1, 2, 3, up and hold. And there's so many different things we can do. I've been working on a program with another person, and she has a full body routine that really releases the core and the rib cage underneath the arms. And it's amazing because the moment you start working underneath the arms and the upper rib cage, you're releasing the jaw and a lot of the neck. So we're finding that, as we release the fascia, we really have to work on the full body eventually. And this is a program you'll be able to refer your clients to do at home so you get the best results in the treatment room. But the more you can release this, the more refined the neck looks, the more refined the jawline, because we don't have this tissue displaced. In fact, one of the doctors I was talking to says that typically jowls shouldn't appear till your 70s. It's pretty crazy, right? And what happens is improper skincare can inflate and puff up the fat cell like marshmallows. And that's what weighs that tissue down. And so it's proper skincare, it's releasing of the excessive lymph, it's releasing of the traps. The whole body works together. As estheticians, it's really important we start to acknowledge this and building our dream team to help the clients truly get, the best skincare and body care, which equates to just a more youthful appearance. And going down, up, and up, going right underneath. And typically, I will always work with the thumbs towards the interface. And so the thumbs meaning kind of these two. And there's no right or wrong. If you use it the other way, if that's like what's comfortable for you, it's not saying that it doesn't work. It's always working. Now we're just going to hold along this jawline. And then what I like to do is I kind of like to pivot, and I'm just using the 4, and I drag it. Just kind of holding, pivot, and drag. And last time. I usually like to do things in 3s. It's an easy number to remember, and you don't get too bored in doing it. So let's go to the other side. And we're just going to hold. And so what we're doing is we're creating circulation, we're creating activity, we're creating miniature kind of triggers in that cell membrane to force a sodium potassium exchange. And this is just waking up the cell, creating ATP, which is used. I mean, if anything, microcurrent creates ATP, which keeps the cell doing what it needs to do. And so by just creating the ATP in the cell protein synthesis, the formation of a healthy healing, wound healing. So much of estheticians are doing, wound healing to generate a more youthful skin. But what we're not taking into account is if the client is past 50, she's already got a compromised mitochondrial function. And so we can't damage the skin and expect her to heal like a 30-year-old. So microcurrent is so important because you're prepping the skin for healing. I've got a client going in and she's going to get a procedure done. And I've got units that I loan out. And I'm like, listen, you need to do this. You've got a month before you go in. I want you doing microcurrent every single day. Let's arm the cells with the best possible response to wound healing than you can. And that's, again, it's just another place microcurrent can be utilized in the treatment room. So now we're going to come up towards the buccinator. And I love to kind of hold it right in this area. And I'm going to tilt right at that lip. And I'm going to drag it all the way back. Same thing, pretty darn easy, right? It's not like we're coming up with lots of thousands of fancy moves. You don't need to with the lift because the lift is so easy and versatile. It makes your job so easy. I can't tell you the amount of people that want it to be more complicated because that's what we've done with microcurrent. We've taken something very, very simple and we've had to complicate it. And now it's kind of coming back to just let the current sit on the skin. The current is going to do far more than your fancy probe work because the current itself is the magic. And this is just a beautiful way to do that. Now it's come up underneath that cheekbone. And I love this because we're really gripping in there and up there. We're just kind of holding, and that current is currently, no pun intended, working in a vertical fashion, right? So the current is working vertically, horizontally across the cheek. Now watch, I'm going to change it up now. And now the current is working horizontally. And so we're getting almost a cross hatching of current through this particular muscle. And so I know that there are believers of the Golgi tendon, and that's awesome. You can do that with other probes. Here, we're just saturating this tissue with electrons and letting the body utilize these electrons as it needs to. Because I am a huge believer in the infinite wisdom of the body and its ability to source what it needs versus telling the body exactly what it needs. So again, let's do this again. And I want you to kind of feel the difference when we're holding here and we're holding and we're saturating the tissue with electrons. We're actually saturating it with hydrogen and a hydroxyl. And what these are kind of magnetically attracted ions. So they kind of latch together. And when we stop doing microcurrent, the hydrogen stays active in the system for up to 72 hours, but the hydroxyl immediately stops. So now this hydrogen is sourced for other issues in the skin, or, like I said, free radicals. It can be utilized as a direct antioxidant, or it can be used in the ATP cycle. And now let's go ahead. We're cross-hatching. Again, this current saturating this muscle and this tissue around the muscle. And then we're going to kind of come over a little bit more. So there was a study done about 10 years ago, and I'm going to have to really dig through my archives to find it. It was a study, I believe it was out of Iran, and they talked about the temporary, it's not forever effects, but there is a temporary effect of hydration in the cells for about 3 hours. And as we were talking a little bit earlier in this video, dehydration of the cells is a leading cause of aging. It's the oxidative stress. This is your night nurses. These are your ER doctors. These are your cocktail waitresses. These are the kids that, live on Pop-Tarts and Diet Coke. If we're not creating proper nutrition to the skin, the cell oxidizes and it gets dry and brittle. And then this just programs it for apoptosis far earlier. So microcurrent does go in and it has a healing effect. And that I get so frustrated because sometimes we're just talking about microcurrent as this anti-aging tool, but it's truly a healthy cell tool. It's what we should all be doing because healthy cells process ingredients differently. And I just I just put, we're gonna go under the eye. I just put a video on YouTube about blocking factors. Like we all have our favorite skincare line and we'll say, oh, XYZ is my favorite. It works wonders. And someone else will be like, well, I don't know, ABC. I mean, I've made people 30 years younger with it. I mean, we all have our belief systems and we all have our knowledge and we all have what we truly have seen work. And I'm not saying that one is truly better than the other, but the consumer has his own set of blocking factors, a big one being dehydration. And if the skin is not processing whatever cellular signal this line is putting out, it's not able to create a consistent unified effect. That's why we see some people respond great to one thing and some people respond great to another. It's not necessarily the product, it's what shape is this client in, and that's the value of your intake sheet. Okay, we're gonna come up a little bit higher and we're gonna hold. And for, if there are consumers, I'm looking, I pretty much see this, my following is all 95% professional. So I typically speak more on a professional level, not on a consumer level. But these are things that you have to really kind of take into account. And I'm not saying that microcurrent is like the Windex of my big fat Greek wedding, but I am, because I'm saying microcurrent is going to enhance everything you do in the treatment room. And if you've got a clientele that you're like, I can't fit people in, then sell them a unit, because they need to be doing microcurrent at home to truly achieve the best results they possibly can. It's just the way it is. So now I hear, well, Jane, how do you know? Right? How do you know? Well, there's not a lot of studies on microcurrent. And the reason being is A, it's really expensive to have a study. And B, there's a little barrier to entry. If you go onto Alibaba or you go in anywhere, you're going to see microcurrent units ranging from $10 to $300. And what is the difference? Well, I don't know. I can only go with clarity of signal, but there's too many units on the market to justify spending $200,000 to $300,000 on a study that may or may not, make that return on investment. I think that Biotherapeutic was one of the first companies to do that. They had Emil Chi at the University of Washington. He was the director of pathology. And so he came up with, kind of what every single esthetician quotes on her site about the increase in collagen and elastin. We're going to go on the other side now. We already worked the jawline. We're going to start at the buccinator. But it does this because of the increase in ATP. When we increase the ATP, we increase collagen and elastin. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist or a biology major to figure this out, right? And what we do see as estheticians is we see through empirical research the change in our client's skin. We see it. We're energizing the skin to do what it needs to do. And this is, I feel, far greater than some silly study that can be tainted left or right. Yet every esthetician that uses microcurrent sees a difference. Now, some estheticians just don't want to do it because it's time consuming. You have to love microcurrent to want to do it. That's why to the ones that don't, I said, just sell them a unit. Like, then don't bother with it. I totally get that. Like, there are days that I don't want to do it either. But I always do it on myself. And the one thing I notice is I consistently look younger. My skin looks younger, assuming I'm not drinking a bottle of champagne or something. We all have those nights. But consistently looks younger. and reflects light differently. And I have to say, it's not like I'm doing, you know, these secret treatments, LED and microcurrent, my two go-tos. Okay, let's going up now underneath those zygomatic muscles. Now, sometimes you feel the current differently on different sides of the face. And this can be two reasons. One, we all favor a side. So there might be more fascia resistance and restriction. And you know, when you have restricted fascia, that's dehydrated connective tissue. That's like coarse, it's like a coarse rope, right? Versus a spider web. So there's more impedance, you know, resistance to that current. Now we're going to crosshatch over. It can also just be something as simple as the change in the programming on the microcurrent unit. I hate to disappoint you, but we run these patterns and one might be more forceful. So at that point, you might want to switch both sides of the face. My unit, I really do try to have it switch every minute. So at least it's kind of getting all of the programs, but you don't know how everybody's working it. And that's something I don't want you to get too caught up in, because it's now you're getting way too detailed. That's like, you know, again, calling and asking, is this the collagen frequency? Well, I don't know. Like, you know, we're not Rife technicians here. We're not like, you know, focusing on this. Just focus on microcurrent. Microcurrent is a millionth of an amp. That's the magic. The frequency is only the frequency in which this microcurrent is carried to the cell. But it's the same damn thing. It's a millionth of an amp, whether it's going at 500 or 200, microcurrent's still doing the work. So don't, like, you know, let people start freaking you out like, well, I don't know, it didn't have that frequency, because it's really the rhythm and the timing and the saturation of the current to get where it needs to go. Now we're going to come up right in that eye area. Just kind of holding. I talked a little bit earlier. This is a round sphincter muscle, and this is, I'm using these four. And I love this because I just go right under, you can kind of see, and it just kind of holds. And this way, you're getting the full saturation of the current around the eye, and you can drag it out and go up. You'll see lots of videos where I do that. I kind of go out and up. And you can even pull it up, kind of going right under that tension point, like right in that corrugator connector, kind of lifting up. And just because we are, I always say this is a half-hour class, just never believe me. It's always going to be an hour. Like, just shake your head and go, Jane, we don't believe you anymore. So let's go ahead and go to the next program on your unit. And boy, does your face feel alive? Like, it really does, doesn't it? You just go, this has got to be good. It just feels good. Before I got into aesthetics, I was into microcurrent. That's another story. But I used to just go, God, it's like an ugly day facial. You kind of wake up and you just go, ugh. But when you do microcurrent, it does something. It just electrifies you. And you just go, oh, this is amazing. So now we're going to be working the muscle. So what this means is it's a different waveform that goes deeper. So before we kind of stayed more in the circulatory and the connective tissue. Now this is a stronger, and you start to feel it. And even though typical muscles I hold, I love to go over the face, and I'm almost going over it like a lymphatic, because again, the lymph is contingent upon kind of muscle movement. And so I'm just kind of going over everything I just loosened up. And I'm just kind of brushing over. And also, to me, this program feels good And so I like to just kind of go over it, and the client feels it differently. And again, sensation when it's mild is appealing to the consumer. They feel like something's being done. So just kind of going over in the area, moving things, moving the tissue, creating miniature contractions in the muscle. So let's talk about miniature contractions in the muscle. Now, we're not looking for gigantic movement because we have gigantic movement all day long. Our facial muscles are involuntary to emotion. So no matter what's going on, something's moving in that face. And that's where I really got into fascia. But the reason we want to create these little minuscule contractions is that it signals to the body it needs to make even more ATP. ATP naturally declines as we get older. So these little tiny contractions, we're not going to turn them into like fitness face models, right? They're not going to all of a sudden have a jawline that looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger. But what it does do is it says to the body, get busy. You've got a little bit more work to do. And that's why the consistency of it, when we constantly create this need to create more ATP over a period of 30 days, the body goes, oh, I need to up my game a little bit. And assuming that your client's diet is, fortified in the minerals and the vitamins to help the body do this, then we start to see amazing results in kind of the tone and the natural lift of the face. But I rarely put microcurrent on my facial menu as a face toner because people expect to look a certain way or a facelift facial. I use it as the fascial release. I combine it with fascial massage and release, and then the microcurrent. But it's really about toning the muscles. So right now I am on the kind of the masseter and the buccinator. I'm just kind of holding in this area. And this is an area that tends to, on many levels, depending upon the posture, if the client is protruded forward, right? So now we've got 40 pounds extra, the head, the appendage here. So we're really building up these trapezius muscles. And what happens, because the body's so damn smart, the jaw starts to recede back to kind of like balance out, like physics, right? So this jaw goes back and it can get attached back here. So that's where the fascia release comes in, because you can really release a lot of this and we can build a little bit of like density in that area. And now I'm just coming over right in here, and it's right before the mentalis region, but I'm just kind of working along this area. And we start to see that little puckering in that jowl area many times when people hit their 40s. And so you can kind of go in that. We're kind of dispersing the lymph. And now everything is about 12 inches, or not 12 inches, about an inch apart. So now I'm just, you can see how I just go segment to segment to segment. It's not difficult. It's pretty easy. And when it's here, you still feel the dispersion of the current going just through and up. And I'm probably holding for around 30 seconds. Don't, again, if you don't hold it 30 seconds one space and then all of a sudden you start holding it 30 seconds in another, it's really not that big a deal. Don't get too wrapped up in the perfection of the microcurrent. And then we're going back out. So you've really got about 2, then you've got the 3rd and 2. And we talked a little bit about the saturation of the current. So currently, this is a positive and negative. So the current is running horizontally. But what I'm going to do is now I'm going to switch it and the current is running vertically. And so I'm hitting every little sarcomere, all the motor neurons, and I'm sending hydrogen to be used in that ATP cycle. And then I love this. So you can see I'm right kind of nestled against that ear. Now I just angle the probe and I'm hitting these 4. And I mean, I know that nobody wants to admit they're doing sometimes 2 things at once in the treatment room, but sometimes you have to. Sometimes someone texts you, and so you're like doing this, you're trying to get her back, and at least her eyes are closed, and you're doing it, but the lift just makes it so damn easy because you're not trying to hold 2 giant probes in one area. So let's go to the other side. I'm just going to hold here. I keep kind of misting my face to keep the gel. And that's a lot of what I do. I know in the treatment room, you have your brush, you put on the gel. I always just re-wet the gel instead of applying more gel, because nothing grosses me out than a bunch of gel on the face. And it's gross. And now I'm going to go to the 4.
Do you only use water when you reapply?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
And nothing special. I don't add salt to it. I don't do any fancy things. It just keep it simple, and just know that the more you do the microcurrent, the more saturated the tissue will become, and more hydrated the tissue will become, and the better results you get in the long run. But everyone has to start somewhere. And it's like working out, right? You look at your butt in the mirror and you're like, I'm going to the gym. It's not like you're walking out like a Sports Illustrated model, but you have to start somewhere.
Excuse me, does it matter if the black is on top?
No. And that's a
Thank
great
you.
question. The black and the black and the red positioning would matter if we were far away, because then we need more pull. But because these are just the perfect distance apart, it's just gravitating very easily. Now I'm going to turn it over and just kind of hit that buccinator this way. And kind of coming in. And the mouth muscle is similar to the eyes, so just setting it in here, we're getting a great kind of circulation. And we're just going to go over to the other side.
Is there a certain program on the 3800 that you like using that with?
So the 3800, I would do build and lift.
Okay.
What you might want to do is do build horizontally and lift vertically. So you might do the whole face a certain way and then switch it and do it a different way. Build kind of plumps those muscles, and lift kind of tightens and creates more of the lift.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And now we're just going to turn it to kind of sandwich it. And now we just do this next section.
I'm sorry, I just had a question about the cleaning, because I use like a brush because I feel like a lot of times I don't get connection. And so I use like a little scrub brush and soap and water to cleanse off the little knobs. Is that the best way to do it, or?
Absolutely. So we'll talk about like the ball bearings.
Yeah.
what connection are you using? Are you using it with the balls or are you using a direct attachment?
Both.
So I'm going to show you at the end of this how to take out and kind of just, I take a Q-tip dipped in alcohol,
Okay.
kind of go around there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. And you can also use a nail brush on the little ball bearings and kind of scrub it that way too. And now we're just going to do the other side like this. Then we'll go to this side and we'll head the eyes. Now, a lot of people will use 2 units. So you have the 3800. You could use two units because you have the 2 channels. This unit has 2 channels as well, but you're drawing off the same power source. So you would have to probably go to 100 to, because now you're amortizing, you know, the 1 unit through two sides. But a lot of people are happy and love it. It just depends on your client and what they want to feel. Okay, we're going to start over here. Over. So microcurrent stays working, you know, so your client really carries the advantage of this treatment for about 3 days. That's when the hydrogen stops working to create more. And that's where they have always said, you want them to come back like every 3 days for a certain amount of time. None of my clients can do that. Like none of them. It's just ridiculous. That's where I just say, they'll go, oh, what do you think of this unit? Or what do you think of that unit? I just say, use it. Like, don't get caught up in, you know, what unit is better. If it's on the market and it's through a company, I just let them use whatever they have and whatever is beneficial, because there's it's such an advantage to you in the treatment room. Don't get caught up that they have to use your unit or the unit that you want unless they don't have one. And then, you know, you can sell them one. Okay, next we're going to go right over the eye area. And I love how that fits right in there. And you're not doing anything fancy. Here's my argument about it. And again, this is like the class according to Jane, because it's my class. We can open the eye and we can pull and we can lift and we can adjust and we can squeeze and we can manipulate, right? But in the end, fascia is always going to win. So fascia houses and cocoons the muscle in a habitual pattern. So if you can try and supersede that, but science and physiology will tell you you can't, that it will always go back. So right now, and if you're not releasing the fascia, you really just want the benefit of the current on the skin. You can create this temporary effect that they look like they've got this, but it typically lasts a day. And you and I, we all know this. Like they go home, they're like, yeah, I liked it, but then my face just went back to normal. And then microcurrent gets this like, oh, it's snake oil. It doesn't really work. It only works temporarily. But that's because you're presenting it wrong. It doesn't work temporarily. It really actually makes substantial change in the skin. But unless you really get into the fascia release and release the resistance that's pulling down this muscle, no matter what amazing moves you think you're doing or learning, they're not going to work. They work for that moment. It's like that lip, you know, I don't know. I have a she's not a teenager anymore, but when she was a teenager, they used to put their lips in this bottle and it would suck. And it would like expand and make their lips, and then they'd take them out and like for like 20 minutes, they had big lips. But then it went back and Katie would go, I don't understand. I go, well, you just don't have big lips. Like, it's just like, we can inflame them for a certain amount of time, but you know, we got to work with what your body is, and microcurrent will perfect your body. And then your habits, you might have to retrain and release in order to restore that face to the natural, you know, positioning that it was when you were younger. Okay, and so now we're just going to kind of go up here. And again, we're letting the current do the work. It just, the microcurrent is going in. There's nothing we can do to navigate the direction, but it's creating miniature action potentials in the sarcomere of the muscles with the motor neurons. And so it's creating a signal to contract. All of this is happening, but it isn't happening, you know, in an extreme form like an EMS unit. You know, an EMS is 1,000 amperage, where a microcurrent is 1/1000th of an amp. There's a substantial difference between these two. And it's not saying that one is bad or not, but studies do show that too strong a current kind of burns out the ATP of the body. It looks great at first, but over time, it's too exhausting for the body to maintain. So less is really more. And then we're going here. And I'm sure you will probably, I'm getting a lot of questions at this point because there are EMS units that people are using on the face. And, you know, I just say from what I have learned, you know, I don't know if it's beneficial, but I don't think 1 or 2 times is going to hurt you if there's something that you want to do. But do you really want to build the muscles on your face? It's not, we're not, people just get so keyed into, oh, I can afford microcurrent and that's supposed to, or I can afford this and this is going to restore. They're not taking into consideration the bone loss, the fat loss, the muscle. You know, we're addressing muscle tone, but we also, you know, absorb a lot of bone, you know, in our face as we get older. And so, you know, we can promise a certain amount, but it's not like, you know, you know, laying down osteocytes while we're doing this. Okay, so in finishing, let's just kind of brush over, kind of always just like to go over it again. Really getting that tissue, going to the other side. Going up. Something I might do, really delicate, older skin, you know, maybe in the 70s, you might get an older woman and she's just got that kind of translucent skin underneath the eyes. That's when just kind of using the balls in this area, and you can just kind of brush in here. Sinuses is really nice, and you can kind of go on that eyelid so easily. You can kind of go in here, kind of moving the lymph. You can always kind of use the balls of this, which is really nice. Allergies. So cleaning the unit. So you have these little attachments, and you can take, you've got a tool with your lift. This will lift this out. See that difference now? So then you can clean these with alcohol. You can also take a Q-tip dipped in alcohol, or you can just use a nail brush and kind of scrub in there and then replace that. And that will really help with your connection. You do it to the other side as well. And then you kind of clean that, because that can get full of guck. And then this is safe too. scrub with soapy water, in between clients. And I love that. There's no real reason to take off these rubber bands. If for some reason you do and you need a new one, you just call me or Tony and we can send you some more of those rubber washers. So that was our Lift With Me Monday. Next week is Christmas Day. Or is it Christmas Day next week? Yeah. Or no, maybe it's Christmas, the day after Christmas. So I will see you guys the following, I think it's the 2nd or the 1st of January, one of those days. It was fun to see you all. If you have any questions, email me at byjaneman@gmail.com. And also send me any feedback, what you liked, what you don't like, what you'd like to see more of. Again, I really try not to go over, but sometimes you just can't have a good class and cut it off at 30 minutes. So this will be recorded. It is recorded and it's on YouTube. So you can always watch it again on the YouTube channel, Jane Man Skin. All right, guys, thanks a lot and have a great day. Bye.